Lisbon, Portugal, a city saturated with rich history and energetic culture, sets the setting for this tragic, genuine wrongdoing of a promising life, ruthlessly cut off following quite a while of being on the public information as a missing individual. The once lively Beatriz Liber was unfortunately found in a stream in a condition of deterioration that was terrible to the point that dental records were expected to affirm her character. It was obvious from marks on her hands that she had attempted to shield herself. There were likewise wounds on her head. What prompted such viciousness? Who had done this to her? And why? Go with me as I explore you through the series of occasions that finished in this grievous occurrence and the fallout that resulted. The assuming that's Lee was brought into the world on June 7th, 1997 from Elvis, a humble community settled close to Spain's line. Growing up, she fostered a profound love for music writing and helping other people. She was a much cherished lone offspring of Paula and Carlos Liber. She was a skilled piano player and an energetic peruser. With a profound interest in brain science and human way of behaving, Beatriz had a fantasy to turn into a clinician. In quest for this fantasy, she moved north of 100 miles away to Lisbon and started concentrating on brain science at the college establishment of Lisbon. She lived in her uncle's loft in Chiles alongside her cousin. After effectively finishing her 4-year certification, she chose to additional her schooling and signed up for a graduate degree program in friendly and hierarchical brain research. To enhance her pay, she worked part-time at a Disney store. Beatriz was an agreeable individual who handily made companions. She was notable among her educators' cohorts and, surprisingly, the clients at her work environment. Friday, May 22, Beatriz was startlingly missing from a gathering show in class. This came as a shock to everybody as she was perceived for her commitment and unwavering quality, never missing a class. What was significantly more strange was that she didn't contact anybody to make sense of her non-attendance. The next day, Beatriz's mom, Paula Liber, got a call from Ruben Cowo, a companion of her girl. He communicated his anxiety about not having the option to contact Beatriz right away. In the wake of finishing the call with Ruben, Paula attempted to contact her girl, yet her calls went unanswered. Carlos Beat's dad combined Paula in Lisbon. They figured out how to get the keys to Beatriz condo. Beatriz had been imparting the loft to her cousin anyway due to the coronavirus pandemic. Her cousin was in disconnection back home, letting her residing be. After arriving at Beat's loft, her folks were agreeably astounded to find Ruben Cowo. As of now, they're hanging tight for them at the entry. They entered the condo together and saw that the primary light was on, and there were plates on the eating table, giving the feeling that Beatriz would return soon. Anyway, they found her wallet and mobile phone on the table, things she could never abandon except if in a hurry. This frightened them. Paula hypothesized that Beatriz probably passed on in scurry to leave these fundamental things behind. However, the inquiry remained, where might she at any point be? All the other things in the loft appeared to be spotless and altogether without any indications of treachery. So at first her folks concurred that she for sure high priority left of her own volition and will return soon anyway. In spite of what she uncovered on a superficial level, Paula's instinct was telling her something was horribly off base. They promptly hurried to the PSP, or Portugal's Public Security Police, and documented a report for someone who has gone missing. Just like the case in numerous nations, people are commonly expected to stand by 24 hours prior to recording such a report, except if there is proof or a solid doubt of a wrongdoing. The Ida's loft anyway gave no indications of constrained passage or any indications of a battle. May 24, the 24 hours have passed with no word or indication of Beatriz. Her restless guardians have scarcely dozed and developed progressively stressed continuously over the course of this time. They were upheld by her companion Ruben too, seeing the guardians in such misery. Ruben opened a WhatsApp gathering to start off the quest for Beatriz, welcoming everybody he might find who actually knew her from her family, companions, or colleagues. He coordinated search parties and shared refreshes occasionally with everybody as the days went by, and there was no sign of Beatriz. Her folks dreaded she was lost, hijacked, or more terrible. Paula pondered would a payment note turn up any update as of now would be a help. This case began to build up momentum on public news with columnists and writers discussing beats. Wherever her folks were confident this would bring issues to light, and somebody someplace would approach with a report on her whereabouts. During this, the police were directing their own examination. They, before long, declared they had their superb suspect close by. What totally stunned everybody was the suspect was, in all honesty, Beat's companion Ruben Cowell. Paula at first thought this was Babel the Limited, who was helping more than some other revitalizing individuals, driving hunt gatherings and refreshing everybody by means of what sap was presently being. Annoyed by the police, how goading, Paula felt terrible for this man. She realized that Beatrice had known Ruben starting from the start of her graduate degree, and he appeared to be more concerned and frantic to find her than any other person. What might actually be the mistake that driven police to capture Ruben? It would seem as police were exploring Barry's vanishing and addressing individuals that realized her they gained from her companions, that Ruben was exceptionally partial to her, more like fixated on her. He was continually looking for her organization and believed her should invest energy with him and just him. Additionally, from accessing messages on her telephone, it appeared Beatrice and Ruben were something beyond companions, and this was enough for them to get a court order to his loft there. They tracked down damning proof to defy him with, yet erring on that later. Ruben Cowell himself was a popular 24-year elderly person, portrayed by quite a few people as well-disposed, keen, and on occasion coy. Like Beatrice, he had serious areas of strength for in writing and music, and was likewise reading up for his graduate degree in friendly brain science. He composed affectionately of his philanthropic humanitarian effort in Mozambique, and had even distributed articles in neighborhood papers. What Paula and Carlos didn't know was that the police had valid justification to think him when they carried Ruben C2. The cross-examination room, they addressed him for quite a long time, gradually showing him the confirmation they had accumulated to check his response and get an admission. They showed him Beatrice's cell phone, which uncovered that they had been in touch for the beyond couple of days, and that he was the last individual to see her alive. They likewise showed him the blood follows they found in Beat's condo, follows that were imperceptible to the unaided eye, yet were noticeable under bright light. Beat's neighbor had additionally referenced sightings of blood drops at the public region in the high-rise, yet at the time she didn't respect it and just cleared it off. Ruin denied all contribution, guaranteeing he was only a companion of Beatrice and was very stressed over her. The specialists were burning through their time when they could be out there, like him, driving pursuit parties and attempting to find her. When pushed for his whereabouts that evening, he said that he did for sure invest energy with her, yet they headed out in different directions that evening based on great conditions. He said he was presently stressed over her and had no great explanation to hurt her, as he really focused on her profoundly anyway. When examiners introduced the blood they tracked down in his dad's vehicle, back in his condo, and at the DNA matched Beatrix, an alternate Ruben arose, now confronting undeniable evidence and shockingly faced in a manner he was unable to envision. He admitted May 21, 2020, Ruben got Beatrix from her loft in Lisbon, and they headed to his folks' home around 15 miles away. His folks were away, and they had the house to themselves. They gone through the night there, and the following day they got back to Lisbon around 1:00 p.m. That night, Beatrice had plans to get together for certain companions, who were likewise her cohorts. They had a gathering task to introduce the following day, and they needed to go over the subtleties and have some good times. Beatrice let Ruben know that she was unable to see him that evening and that she was returning home to Elvis the next day to visit her folks, and her sweetheart Ruben was not content with this. He needed to invest more energy with Beatrice and could have done without the possibility of her being with others, particularly her beau. He attempted to convince her to change her arrangements. However, she denied. She set some hard boundaries and let him know that they were simply companions, and that he needed to acknowledge that maybe it was this that set off him a dismissal for another man. that he was unable to acknowledge on the grounds that what he did next was in single word, frightful. Reuben said he felt dismissed and irate. He chose Ed to assume control over issues. He got an iron, Batman from home, and headed to Beats Lofter. Needed to pass by a cost span where he deliberately paid in real money to try not to be followed. He knew that Beatrix would have been distant from everyone else on the grounds that she had let him know her cousin was back home. Reuben had likewise changed his telephone to flight mode as an additional safeguard upon his appearance. He left his vehicle, disguising the mallet from sight. He then, at that point, rang the doorbell. Beatrice, shocked by his unexpected visit, invited him inside. This record lines up with the police report, which noticed no proof of constrained section the second the entryway shut behind them. Reuben sent off a horrendous assault on Beatrice with his cudgel. He struck her on numerous occasions. She gave a valiant effort to retaliate and covered her face and head with her arms. Yet Reuben overwhelmed her. He struck her hard in the head. Multiple times it was brutal, to the point that Beatrix passed on the spot. Once Reuben quieted down and grasped what he had recently done, he terrified and concluded he expected to figure out how to cover this up and discard her body. He spent that following 5 hours in her lofts, fastidiously tidying up the blood and proof. He likewise sent a message from Beatrice's telephone to one of her companions, guaranteeing that she was too worn out to even think about gathering up with them. He held on until late around evening time, and utilizing the front of Murkiness' vehicle, read Beatrice's body on his back. The whole way to his vehicle he headed to the Tahoe waterway, the longest stream on the Iberian promontory, and unloaded her body. He then got back to his home, going about as though nothing had occurred. Back to the cross-examination. Reuben started to break under the tension and began to wail. He said he didn't intend to kill her. He cherished her, and that. Yet again, he simply needed to be with her. He said that he had at first gone to the condo to converse with her. However, she dismissed him and advised him to leave. That is the point at which he let completely go and hit her with the bar. Angrily, he said that he had terrified and that he had attempted to dispose of the proof and the body. He said that he lamented what he had done and that he wanted to take it back. The police asked him how he had managed the body, and he educated them regarding that specific area in the waterway where he enclosed the body by a cover, attached it with a rope open, and anticipate and watched it sink. He said that he had trusted that the body could never be found and that he could fail to remember what he had done. The police, joined by Reuben, sent off a hunt activity along the Tattoo waterway. Following a few days of persevering, looking through, utilizing boats, jumpers, and robots, they at last found Beat's body around 1.5 miles downstream from where Reuben had disposed of it. The body was in a high-level condition of disintegration, however, was emphatically distinguished, as Beatrix, through her dental records, criminological proof affirmed she had passed on through serious Greff power injury to the head, and she had had guard wounds on her hands, showing that she retaliated. The police charged Reuben with first-degree murder and disguise of a carcass, and took him to the jail where he would anticipate preliminary. The insight about Beatrix's demise sent shockwaves through the local area. Her companions, schoolmates, and Coles were left crushed, unfit to fathom that she had been killed by somebody they all knew, and surprisingly partook in the quest for her. A vigil was held in her memory, and web-based entertainment was overflowed with sorrow and recollections of Beatrice. The double-crossing by Reuben just enhanced their distress. Him and his family got dooming messages via online entertainment. He was the most loathed man in Portugal. Reuben was accused of homicide, profaning of a courts, and simul viation of a wrongdoing. He was held in preventive detainment, anticipating preliminary. At some point, he was attacked by one more detainee and had additionally endeavored to take his life. He was offered mental guiding, which he declined. While anticipating his preliminary, he was placed on self-destruction. Observe anyway on Sunday, June 22, 2020, at some point between 10 p.m. 11:00 p.m. He draped himself in his cell with his bed sheet and abandoned a note in which she was sorry for his activities and communicated his failure to live with the culpability, Beatrice's mother communicated her sympathies. To Ruben, via online entertainment, she said she had sympathy for his loved ones. Since they also had lost a youngster, moreover, she needed to stop the disdain that was via online entertainment. There was a staggering measure of disdain against Ruben and festivity around fresh insight about his end, that Paula needed to neutralize these contemptuous responses with one of harmony. And love, she composed statement. Ruben is an ordinary kid, 24 years of age, who could well be my child. I should in this way offer my appreciation to his family. She further said, lamented he ended his life. Since it impacted her own conclusion, quote, I ought to have conversed with him. It was the least he might have done. I wanted answers. The instance of Beatriz Liber was formally shut, yet the inquiries waited what drove Ruben to commit such a fierce demonstration. How could he be ready to cover his clouded side from every individual who knew him in the repercussions of Beatrice's passing? Her loved ones endeavored to keep her memory alive. They coordinated shows and readings in her honor and laid out a grant in her name to help understudies trying to concentrate on brain science. They, likewise, brought issues to light about brutality against ladies and mental well-being, empowering individuals to look for help on the off chance that they wound up experiencing the same thing. The terrible story of Beatriz Lee shows us why it's critical to control our motivations, figure out how to regard different choices in any event when they conflict with what we want, and not be overwhelmed by our dull considerations and feelings. I leave you with a video of Beatriz Lee, the manner in which she could have wished to be played out the piano. May she discover a sense of harmony, and may her music keep on reverberating.